Hello and welcome to the Peter Bealey Experience Q&A sessions. And tonight, for my guest, I've got Lloyd Johnson. Lloyd has been involved within the men's fashion industry for over 4 decades. And over the next hour or so, hopefully Lloyd is going to let us into that world of his. So how are you, Lloyd?
I'm fine, absolutely fine. You?
Good, thanks, yeah. And where is home?
Putney, West London.
And the obligatory question, what's the weather like where you are today?
Very, very sunny at the moment. It's been raining this afternoon.
Yeah, pretty much the same here, but we're apparently we're entering into another heat wave next week.
Right.
So
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. So I've got one question compiled, and hopefully from this then we can naturally just go through your extraordinary early years within the men's fashion. So where did this whole fascination start with regarding men's fashion?
It started when my mother said to me, basically, you need to get out more, right? Because I was probably about 14, and I was still building model aeroplanes on my grand's pastry board in the dining room, and she just said to me, "There's a youth club opening in the village." I lived in Orr Village, which is a sort of suburb of Hastings in Sussex.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really want to go because I was quite happy, doing what I was doing. And she pushed me to go out to youth club. I went to youth club and discovered that a few of my mates from school was going as well, and there were girls there, of course. And they were playing a lot of music like Dwayne Eddy and Eddie Cochran and stuff like that. So I really got into it. So that's how it started. And then there was 3 guys there that looked great, and they were into Bonanza, which was a TV Western series. And one of them thought he was Little Joe Cartwright. And there was another one that was a bit like Horse, and another guy. And all 3 of those went to my school, so I started hanging out with them. They formed a band called the Tumbleweeds or something like that, a sort of a Western sounding name.
Yeah.
And there was a guy there called Tex Bailey, who was the dad of 2 boys in my class at school. And he played guitar in a dance band. And he used to give up his time for youth club to teach all the kids guitar. So everyone went to his guitar lessons when we weren't dancing to the likes of Marvin Rainwater, Whole Lot of Woman, and Dwayne Eddy, and all those sort of Pipeline stuff, and Apache and whatever. Then from that, I progressed to coffee bars, and the first time I went into a coffee bar was with a mate of mine from the grammar school, who had a rocker type haircut, although you didn't call it that then. It was pretty normal, sort of wings at the side and a bit at the front, And I had a college boy, side parting, and we met up and we went to this coffee bar called the Fiesta, which was in near the art school in Hastings, and it was full up with sort of prototype beatniks, basically. That was another eye-opener. And as we walked in, Poetry in Motion was playing by Johnny Tillotson. And then Johnny White, who was my mate, he said, "We better go because our teachers come across here and check whether any of the kids are in the coffee bar."
Right.
Because it was open at the front, it was a glass window all across the front. And there'd just recently been a TV program on called No Hiding Place with Raymond Francis, which was a TV cop drama, and Adam Faith was a motorcycle kid in it, and he had a flip knife fight in a coffee bar. You know, so all our parents were like, "You're not going to coffee bars," and stuff like that, you know. Adam Faith in the end did a chicken run, you know, at a crossroads and got killed in this thing. All the parents thought all coffee bars were like terrible dens of iniquity, you know. So we had to be a little bit careful, you know, in case we got a thick ear, basically, you know. Then another coffee bar opened called the Pandor, which was much cooler. You know, that was above Hepworth's in Hastings. It was between Hepworth's and Chelsea Girl, and it was just a glass door, and you went up 2 flights of stairs to the rooms above Hepworth's, and they had a pinball machine room, and there was a lower room where we all hung out. That was all the kids in crew neck sweaters and haircuts and a bit of back combing on the back and all that. So they become known as mods or whatever later. And then there was 3 steps up to the next room under an arch, and that's where all the Stonefield mob hung out, and they were all the biker guys from further up the road, you know. And everyone got on fine, you know, there was no hassle or anything like that, except they would play stuff like Don Gibson, Jim Reeves and all that on the jukebox, and we nudged the jukebox to reject their records, and we'd play Tamla Motown and Ramsey Lewis and stuff like that, you know.
So when are we talking? 59, 60?
Now that is about, I'm up to about 63, 64 then.
Right.
And then from about 62 until then, like, there were a lot of London boys and scooter boys coming down. You know, some would come down on the milk train for weekends by the seaside, and they were all great blokes, you know, and it was all a laugh, and we all used to go for dances on the pier and see bands like Screaming Lord Sutch, the Hollies, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, the Stones, various other people. I mean, even the Springfields played with Dusty Springfield, you know, and I think there was about 20 of us there, you know, because like some of the boys thought she was pretty cool, you know what I mean? But I mean, we didn't like the music, we just wanted to go and see her, you know. And then the whole, because of Ready Steady Go, all the morons got into the scene, and you got a lot of yobbos sort of getting involved in it, and they just ended up, you know, fighting and stuff like that, which none of us were into. Our scene was more like happy days, you know.
Yeah.
And they this rougher element got into it and sort of spoilt it really. And the night the Stones played the pier, the weekend the Stones played the pier, there were thousands and thousands of kids down there, and we all got marched around the town and stuff like that. I managed to get out of this this being marched around the town. I literally caught the bus from my house, which is 3 miles outside of Hastings, got off the bus and stepped into a whole mob of people being ushered around the town, you know. And I said to this cop, I said, I don't want to be walking around the town. I've come to go somewhere. And they were all London police that had been flown in, you know, so they thought everyone was trying to pull the wool over their eyes, you know. But at one point we got marched down the old town, and I managed to slip up an alleyway and away from it all, and back over the West Hill and down to the coffee bar. My mate wouldn't let me in the coffee bar at first, and then eventually let me in and said, if you're in here all day. you know. So I stayed in the coffee bar all day, out of trouble, and we got the whole day free plays on the jukebox, you know. So it was great, you know. We just had a great time, and there was a club upstairs called the Take 5 Club with a small dance floor. So we just had the place to ourselves, about 20 friends, you know.
Yeah.
And after that, we sort of, myself and a guy called Andy Mowbray, who used to play harmonica as well. We used to go down Bottle Alley, which was a big alleyway that by the pier. That if you played harmonica down there, it was really good acoustics. It used to echo.
Yeah.
And we'd mess around down there, you know, on these sort of wintry, lonely nights, you know, sort of learning to play blues licks and stuff like that. And then because of the scuffles and stuff, you know, on the bank holiday weekend when the Stones played, we decided to leave Hastings basically, because it's not what we were into. And we left Hastings and we caught a boat to Gothenburg, because we were both going out with Swedish girls at the time.
Lloyd, before you get to that point, what was your actual preference style wise by this point? Like, say when you went to see the Stones.
Well, I was wearing. Let's think.
Would you class yourself as a mod?
Well, I mean, we went through this thing where we were calling ourselves modernists.
Yeah.
And then individualists,
Yeah.
then style. We were escaping the tag mod all the time, because we associated the shortening of it with yobos.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I was wearing was things like three-piece suits made by either Hepworths or Burtons.
Yeah.
Separate shirts and collars, like white shirts, white collars, white stiff collars, or pointed softer ones. There's a semi-stiff collar, Van Hoosen 99, I think it was, and black knitted ties. Flaps on every blooming pocket going on the jackets, you know, that sort of thing. By that time, my hair was heading towards sort of Rolling Stone length, really, you know. We didn't have a lot of money, you know. I mean, I did have an Ella & David boots, which were bought for me in 1962 by my mother for my sister's wedding in June. But as you can imagine, they were pretty shabby by then, you know, because it was 2 years.
To the viewers that are watching, you said a very, very famous name then, but some people might not be aware. Anello and David. What were they then to the initiated?
Anello and David's are a theatrical shoemaker, and the only shop I knew at that time of Anello and David's was in Charing Cross Road, which it's not now. And they had a warehouse or stockroom in Drury Lane, and I think I don't know where the factory was. It might have even been in Drury Lane. And I can remember going to, what you used to have to do is go to the shop and they draw around your foot, and then they measure your instep and your ankle and your calf further up, you know, the measurements, depending on the height of the boot you wanted. And I chose a style called the Embassy boot. In fact, I gave you them.
Yes.
It's the ones I...
Oh, wow. I'll get some pictures of them then for the... Yeah. When I share.
And they were £6, 10 shillings, right?
Yeah.
The boot that went on to become known as the Beatle boot, and this is all before the Beatles were, you know, arrived on the scene, because these were being ordered for me in about, I would imagine, probably March in '62.
Yeah.
For my birthday in May, on the conditions that I wore them to my sister's wedding.
Right.
In '62, and so the ones with the seam down to the toe that became known as the Beetle boot were called Bar boots, and they were £3.15 at the time. I do have those catalogues, you know, showing all those styles.
Yeah.
I can jump up and show you if you like.
Yeah, why not? Why not? That'd be brilliant. 2 seconds. Yeah, whilst Lloyd's getting the catalogues, I'll mention that Lloyd loaned me some of his collection to an exhibition in Leicester last year, and one of these pieces was Nello and David boots he was just mentioning. And after the exhibition, Lloyd kindly gifted the boots to me, which are now, as you can imagine, a treasured piece of my collection, which I was very humbled at being given. And it's lovely now to actually hear the story of how Lloyd acquired them. And I didn't realise, Lloyd, that it was almost like you were having them made bespoke.
Yeah, it was. We did. Hang on, I'm getting there.
So they would never have like a row of them already made. It was.
Oh yeah, they had the bar boots all made up. Once a bit later.
Yeah, once the Beatles had.
They did have stock.
Yeah.
I'm trying to the. Oh, another one I had was the Othello boot. I'll show you those as well. That's when I was a bit beatniky at art school. Oh, there's the embassy boot.
Yeah.
And look at these toes. Look at the toe shapes. And there's going to be one. There's going to be one on this side that you'll love. That angle toe.
Oh wow! Do you know what? I've never seen that before. That's fantastic.
A friend of mine's got a pair of those. The guy called Paul Day has a pair of those.
Brilliant.
Does DJing. I'll show you the Othello boots.
So Lloyd, when's that catalogue from then?
This is from '66. So they were doing the same. They're the ones I used to wear to art school, these boots, right?
Yeah.
And I was at art school in 61, 62.
Yeah.
The King Bees used to wear these. David Bowie's fan.
I remember there's a famous picture of David wearing them. I was gonna when I see the picture, I recognised them.
Oh, there's some other ones here. These are amazing. These are just ridiculous. These ones.
Oh wow. Dave Davis had something similar to them, didn't he?
I don't know, but I mean, I've got the girls' one as well, if you'd like to see it. Look at those.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
You couldn't get cowboy boots anywhere then.
No.
So that's the only place you'd be able to find some. Do you want to see the girls' ones?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah, so when I was presented these boots, it was, as you can imagine, it was an amazing thing for me to have an original pair. That's beautiful. Wow.
Right.
So these catalogues, were they free within the Charing Cross shop?
Yeah, you send off for them.
Okay.
There's the prices.
My eyesight's not the best, so I can't read it anyway, but oh yeah, that's better. Yeah. So Lloyd, they were very expensive, weren't they? You know, back then.
Oh yeah. Hang on. I'll try and find some good photos, because these are you know, these are the boots that they wore in the Avengers and things like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're brilliant.
Now that would have been considered really kinky.
Yeah.
You know, like the people.
Could you do it via mail order then? Did you always have to go in and have a fitting?
I got some mail order from Sweden.
Okay.
This is the order form.
Right. All right.
Can you see that okay?
Yeah, yeah, you can see that. So and you can see all the specifications that they require.
Yeah. And I'll try and find I showed you those, didn't I? Yeah, I think so, yeah. He says talking to himself.
Oh, that's fantastic. Brilliant picture. Brilliant. It's amazing that you've still got them, Lloyd. That you've kept them.
Yeah. But you know, you do with the stuff you're impressed with. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then,
do you know the shirt? You know the shirt you're wearing?
Yeah.
I had an olive green one of those made when I worked at Cure at Austin Reed's,
Right.
with a matching olive green satin tie.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Have you still got it?
No.
So we got to the point where you'd moved over to Sweden.
Yeah. Well, I went and worked down the gypsum mines in Robertsbridge, and my friend Andy went and worked on they were just putting the pylons up across the country. You know, the cable pylons.
Yes.
And I think it was called BOC or something like that, the company, I can't remember. And he went to go up to Rugby to train, and we decided we'd save up £100 each, which was a lot of money then, because people were earning around about that time, about anything from £4 to £6 a week. You know, so it was actually it was a big goal to do that, and so he was training to do that, and like I was really worried because like there was an average of one person every 2 or 3 months falling off pylons or getting electrocuted, stuff like that, you know. And I was working down the gypsum mines, and I was lined up to do drilling for dynamite, you know, for the explosives. And that I would have actually got £32 a week for that. But you had a sort of a short lifespan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
High risk.
You either got a few fingers missing, or you caused a rock fall and got damaged for life. You know, It was like. But I managed to get out safely, and we saved up money, and we caught a boat, funny enough, called Swedish Lloyd, to Sweden from Harwich, and landed at Gothenburg, and couldn't understand why there weren't hordes of screaming girls to welcome us. But we caught a train to Stockholm. We had nowhere to stay. We didn't know what we were going to do. we managed to get through. The customs or police at the border police said, "Why you come to Sweden?" And Andy, as quick as a flash, said, "We're ornithologists." And they didn't get the joke, you know what I mean?
Yeah, after the birds.
So we caught the train to Sweden, and in our carriage on the journey there was a school teacher who actually gave us apples to eat, which is funny, and there was a guy, and we got speaking, talking to them, and the guy was a prisoner who was going home on weekend leave. So when you serve a sentence in Sweden, if it's not incredibly serious, if it's not violent or anything like that, you're allowed to go home if you show good behaviour.
Okay.
This was so out of our thought zone, like it wasn't like that here at all.
Right.
It felt like England was in the Dark Ages, and we said to him, "Well, why don't you just not go back?" He said, "No, I wouldn't do that. They'd only catch me eventually, blah, 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 So it breeds common sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we got to Stockholm, and we had a friend from Hastings called Duncan, who basically he was teaching English in Sweden, and we phoned him up, and he was a bit freaked out and said, "You've just arrived and you've got nowhere to stay. You don't know what you're doing, blah, 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 blah." Because we just, we'd had enough of Hastings, Anyway, he pointed us in the right direction, and he said, "You can stay on this boat in the harbour for 3 nights a week, every week, So we stayed there for the first night we went out, and it was, I think it's called San Lucia, where all the girls walk around in white robes with flowers in their hair. They felt a alcohol called, right? It's like, we were walking around the old town, cobbled streets, and all these people.
Lloyd, I seem to be losing your.
We died and gone to heaven.
Lloyd, I seem to be losing you. The picture's just frozen. That's it. Yeah, we've got you back now, Lloyd.
Okay. So where were we?
You were talking about your English teacher had let you stay in the boat. Okay,
so I'll start from there again. This guy, the guy that was teaching English.
Yeah, not your English teacher. Sorry.
So Duncan, who was teaching English in Sweden, he pointed us in the right direction and said we could stay on this boat called the Af Chapman in the harbour, and so we did that for the first 3 nights. And the first night we went out to Gamlestad, which is the old town part of Stockholm, and it's all cobbled streets and old buildings.
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah, and it was Saint Lucia. I can't say it. Saint Lucia, right? I think it's called. And there were all these beautiful girls in white robes with flowers in their hair, handing out mulled wine, and we just thought we died and gone to heaven, And so that was our first introduction to Stockholm, which was amazing. The next day, we phoned up a few friends we knew from Hastings, because the Swedish kids used to come over to Hastings to learn English, and we hung out with them for a day or two, and then we decided that we'd go busking, to get extra money. So we just stood in a shopping street called Hortoria, which is about 4 or 5, or it was then 4 or 5 skyscrapers, and a pavement that slopes into the centre with a gully down it, which was heated underneath, so it melted all the snow.
All right.
I mean, all these sort of things to us were space age.
Yeah.
You know, like we were thinking, wow, you know, what, you know, we was becoming rapidly disappointed with England, because it seemed to be that England was behind the times, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're a generation, or we were a generation that was brought up with the sort of tail end of the English Empire, and everything English was great, you know.
Yeah.
Which was quite an arrogant attitude, really, you know.
Yeah.
And we thought we were the foremost best country in the world and all that, and we're rapidly realising we're not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we hung around Altoria, and we were playing harmonica. I played rhythm harmonica, and Andy sang and played intermittent links between his singing.
Yeah.
And this guy came up to us called Dodare Hawkinson, his name was, and he looked just like Brian Jones, right? And he just was standing there jigging around and things like that. And we got friendly with him. And then we said to him, if you get some maracas, you can come busking with us.
Brilliant.
Right? So he got a pair of maracas, right? And he just did, all he did there was like standing there like that and looking good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And then he was skipping off school to do this, right? And he got sort of reprimanded and all the rest of it. And he said to Andy and I, would we come to his school to set the record straight? You know, that he wasn't sort of a juvenile delinquent sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went to his school, and all the kids at his school looked like sort of almost like 50s dead straight Ivy League American kids, you know, like really, really, really straight, like Richie Cunningham type look.
Yeah,
you know, with crew cuts like I've got now, you know, like they were all like that, and they were all blazered up and immaculate, you know. And there's him with a haircut like you, blonde, you know, totally the Rolling Stones, and they're saying he's dirty, and I mean he washes his hair every day. You know?
Yeah.
He doesn't make his bed. You know, he's bohemian. He's this, he's that. You know, and we're saying, well, that's not a crime. You know, and he washes his hair every day. And how often do you wash your hair? And then it became a bit more, you know, oh, I wash my hair once a week. And I'd say to his name was Douglas, and his nickname was Dodo. I'd say to him, how often do you wash your hair? He goes, every morning, you know, that sort of thing. And they're all beginning to shut up.
Yeah.
And slowly, you know, over the next month, several more of them were sort of getting into it, you know. Like,
they were growing their crew cuts out.
Yeah, it's funny.
Brilliant.
And then Dodare took us to Narland, right, which was this basically a disused convent that had become a place almost like a youth club where bands played. And we saw the Targas, Ola and the Janglers, Hepstars, trying to think who else. Loads of the Swedish bands at the time.
Yeah.
For us, I suppose the Targas was the best ones at that time. They were all good looking. They were good, you know.
You know how it's interesting because I've got a couple of albums by them, but I've always pronounced them as the Tages.
No,
it's
the Targas.
Oh, that's interesting to know.
Yeah, Targas. I mean, I saw them a bit later as well. So we're at Narland one night, and these two girls come on singing, and they're wearing pinstripe suits, trouser suits, and they've both got their microphones up here, singing into their microphones, and they're called Bella and Me, right? There is a clip of them on YouTube.
Okay.
They much later they had a record out called Whatever Happened to the 8-Day Week or 7-Day Week or something like that. They're on Beat Club, you know,
Okay.
years later. Ice Cream Man now.
I was just going to say, I can hear that outside.
Yeah.
But you can't get more British than that.
With an Elvis song.
Brilliant.
So we met the two girls, and I'm saying to Andy, don't tell anyone. And he's going, yeah, I know. You know, all of a sudden we were going to be Brian Epstein, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And take them to England and make a fortune, and because they were really, really good. And there wasn't anything like that in England, you know, two really beautiful looking girls with blonde hair, you know, singing like Everly Brothers type harmonies.
Yeah.
You know, all you needed is some good songs, you know, and you've got, the look is there, the beauty's there, you know, and they both had good personalities. I'm still friends with both of them.
Wow.
One of them, Gula, she's a physiotherapist in Chiswick, right?
Okay.
In London. And Bella still lives in Stockholm, and I talk to her on a daily basis, you know. So eventually Andy goes out with Bella for a long time. Then it started getting very, very cold, and Andy had the opportunity to have a room in somebody's house, and I was talking on the phone to my girlfriend Sarah, and so I felt sort of a bit out in the cold, you know what I mean? And she said, "Oh, come down here and stay with my parents and I," you know, which I did do. And then I got, and this is probably the true beginning of getting into the rag trade. I was getting bored witless, because I was living in this little village called Fluby, outside of Fulshirping, and everybody was going to work. Her mum and dad were going to work, and Sarah and her sister were going to school, and I was on my own all day. And everything's white, right? So it's like almost like snow blindness, and it sends you round the bend, you know, after a while, you know. Yeah. And I wanted to do something, and I was drawing clothes and stuff like that. And I had a drawing. I'll show it to you one day. This drawing that I did at that time of a sort of a dandyish looking bloke, you know. Anyway, I was doing drawings and things like that. And then I said to her mother and father, I said, "Look, I need to get a job. I'm going to go insane, you know, if I don't get a job." And her father was a local bank manager, and he asked this factory that was making ski pants and tartan trousers for women if they had any jobs, and they had a job for a cutter, you know. So I ended up on a bandsaw cutter cutting, and I couldn't speak Swedish, so I just got on with the job, and I got the cutting 3 months in advance, and I kept getting rises all the time, you know, getting more and more money.
Yeah.
The lady, the wife of the factory owner, was a lady that was rescued by Schindler.
Oh,
you
wow.
Know,
yes.
She had a number tattooed on her arm.
Oh my God.
So Mrs. Shergreen, she was really, really nice and really fair, you know. And eventually, when I was there, I designed and made Sarah a trouser suit, with the slip front trousers, like Courage trousers, you know, and all that.
Yes, yes.
The jacket was a very short bolero jacket with a velvet collar, and then we both sent off for Nello and David boots. I mean, she looked great, you know.
So you said you made this for Sarah. So where did you learn? Was it just?
My mum used to be a sample machinist for Galeries Lafayette in Regent Street.
Okay.
Because we're from the East End, but I was born in North London. My family was from Shoreditch, from just behind Hoxton Square. They lived in a street called Haberdasher Street, and so she worked in Old Street in a factory as a sample machinist for Galeries Lafayette, and I picked all that up from my mum. You know.
Fantastic. So by this stage, when you were living at their house, you'd already got the skills for making clothing.
Yeah, albeit a bit primitive, but I mean, I managed to work it all out and gave me something to do, you know. Then Sarah and I came back to England, and I think, now I think about it, I was there in '65. I was out of the country.
Yeah.
That's when the Small Faces appeared. That's when the Who appeared, and all those things. Although I saw them on television in Sweden, I didn't glean the atmosphere of that happening. Yeah. So in the Small Faces, the Who, and like bands are late to the party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everybody takes them as the benchmark for mod. You know, and it basically that whole scene was going on from '59 onwards. Yeah. You know, by then it was totally commercialised.
Yeah, amongst that kind of scene, that's very much a bone of contention, isn't it? Really, you know, like where people think that's where it all started.
Yeah.
You know, with bands like the Who and.
It didn't start. It all started with the bum freezer suit. It started at the demise of the Teddy Boy, basically. Yeah. Which was late '50s, you know. And the Teddy Boy started in like about '53. You know. I mean, I can remember my family used to have the Daily Mirror, and I can remember seeing the centre page spreads of the Daily Mirror in the late '50s. They had an amnesty for offensive weapons, and I can remember seeing all these pictures of knuckle dusters, all these medieval weapons, like knuckle dusters with blades coming out of them and things like stuff. You know, so when people think the end of the world is nigh now with the various stabbings, they just didn't get reported on back then. You know what I mean? Yeah. If one person got murdered and it was in the paper, that was a horror story. You know. Mm. So these things didn't get reported on like they do now. You know? Yeah. I mean, the media now has a lot to answer for with sheer fear that it projects. Do you know? Yeah. Anyway, that's another matter.
Yeah, we could talk all night on that one for sure. Yeah. So you.
Yeah, go on. Where am I now?
so you'd made Sarah a suit with a courgette.
Yeah, and then we came back to England for the summer, and her mother said to me, Sarah's mother said to me before we left Sweden, she said, "What are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, don't know really. You know, like living for the moment all the time. You know." Yeah. She said, "Well, I've seen this advert in a Swedish paper for salesmen wanted in clothing shops in London." So she persuaded me to write off for an interview, right? And I wrote off for an interview at for Cecil G, who was advertising in Swedish papers. And I got an interview for September, and we came back to England earlier in the summer, and then Sarah was working in a coffee bar cum club underneath the Queen's Hotel called the Flying Machine, which we all, it was a place for the students to go, and we all decorated it. And we put up newspapers all over the walls, right? French newspapers, German newspapers, English newspapers. And then with paint, we wrote rude words, you know, swearing and things in different languages. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was like when I think of that now, it's like punk rock.
Yeah.
You know, exactly like punk rock. And the whole stage, we built the stage, and we just collected loads of egg cartons and things like that, and stuck all these egg cartons on the wall for soundproofing, and built a makeshift bar which only sold you know, coffee and Coca-Cola type things, soft drinks. And she worked behind the bar, and I was just like, you know, on holiday for like 2 or 3 months, you know. And before I went for the interview, that was a great little club for a long time. And there also in Hastings by that time was the Witch Doctor Club, which was fantastic. A mate of mine who was a prefect at my school, he was the manager of that. So I used to get in there for nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And we'd see bands like the Moody Blues and stuff like that, Nashville Teens and people like that. And Moody Blues when they were with Denny Lane, when they were really good, you know.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the summer, Sarah went back, and I remember driving to London, and my mate was playing the radio in his car, and I can always remember Ticket to Ride playing.
Oh, wow.
And she literally, we went back to Stockwell, where we got a bed sit, drove to Stockwell. I saw her off at the tube station, and she went back to Sweden, right? And then the next day I had to start at Cecil G's. So I started at Cecil G's. I was really nervous because I sold shoes in a shoe shop, in Hilton Shoes in Hastings, and that's as far as it went. But then I started at Cecil G's, and I was in the knitwear department, which was a mezzanine floor in Shaftesbury Avenue. You know, you can imagine like being an out-of-town hick, you know, like all of a sudden you're thrown into this shop where Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, all the likes of those come in and buy stuff, you know. And so the guy tells me to take all the sweaters out, check the style numbers, the price, and put them back in the right place. And so I knew like that where the stock is, you know. And I'm doing that, and then he came to me and said, I'm going for my lunch now. There's a buzzer here. If you get into trouble, right, buzz, and someone from up or downstairs will come up, right, and help you. So I'm doing what he told me. I'm unpacking the sweaters, folding them again, memorising the style numbers, the prices and sizes. And then behind me there's a, like this. I turn round and it's Johnny Walker from the Walker Brothers, right? And he's done something to his leg because he had a walking stick, right? And he's wearing this great big thick chunky knit sweater, crew neck sweater. And I've gone, the voice is gone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, they're images on television or cardboard cutouts in record windows, you know, but they're the real person standing in front of me. And I just didn't know what to do, so I pressed the buzzer. And the guy come up from downstairs and served him and said to me, you better go downstairs, all right? And so I went downstairs, and then another guy downstairs said, well, I think you better operate the lift today, right? So I thought, okay, you know, I'm completely, you know, this is a rubber hammer story and skyhook story, right?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I'm standing by the lift, and I think, oh God, first day I've been demoted. You know what I mean? And then this bloke comes in with a camel coat, smoking a cigar, looking very upmarket. And he said, "What are you doing here, standing here, son?" I said, "Oh, I'm the lift operator." He said, "Oh, take me to the first floor then." So I get in the lift and shut the lift door and press the button and take him to the first floor. He said, "What's your name, son?" I said, "It's Lloyd." He said, "Come into the office, Lloyd." So I went into the office, and it's Cecil G himself, right? And the lift only goes one floor, right?
Yeah. So you hadn't twigged on.
No, of course not. You know, I didn't know the building. And he sits me down in front of his desk. He said, "What's going on here?" I said, "Well," I told him that Johnny Walker came in, and he said, "They're taking the mickey, Lloyd." He said, "You look like you might like the pop group, the Music Biz shop in Charing Cross Road." He said, you know, to cut a long story short, he said, "On Monday, report to such a number, Charing Cross Road. That's where all the bands go." So then I was working in Charing Cross Road opposite St Martin's College of Art.
Yeah.
So all the customers that we got there were like the Stones, the Beatles, the Kinks, the St Louis Union, Pinkerton's Colours, that lot.
Yeah.
Just all those bands, you know, because they all hung around Soho. They all went to Selma's and all the music shops along Denmark Street. All the publishers were in Denmark Street. So that was great fun for 6 months. And then I fell out with the manager and swore at him and got the sack. And in my lunchtime, I went and managed to get an interview at Q Department in Regent Street, which was a sort of very much of an upmarket version of Carnaby Street. Made fantastic high roll collar shirts with metal bones in them that you could shape to get the perfect roll collar, all in bleeding madras, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
And fantastic American imports and all sorts of nonsense, fur, 3/4 length fur coats and, you know, all that stuff. And within 2 weeks of being there, Colin Woodhead, that run the place, had bought an easel and got me drawing out clothes. So I was no longer a salesman. I was a sort of in-house sketch merchant that drew out clothes, and then if he saw anything he liked, he would get it made up and sampled.
Fantastic.
And then to me and say, "What do you think of this?" And I go, "Oh, it's wrong there, it's right there, it's da 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 da," you know. But we used to get a clothing allowance there, hence the what I said earlier about the satin shirts, you know.
Yeah.
I got satin shirts made up there with a big roll collar, and at the time, I'm trying to think of the film. It was a Terence Stamp film where he had tie knots like as big as your fists, and that was fashionable at the time, you know. But I made myself because I started making ties and things then.
So when's this, Lloyd? Is this 66?
66, yeah.
Yeah.
And I started making ties then, and I made myself an olive satin tie to go with the olive satin shirt, but the bottom, instead of being like that,
yeah,
right, like normal, was slash.
Yeah, diagonal.
So, yeah, a slash bottom tie. And then in my lunchtime, I used to go to Tiles, which was a 24-hour mod club, and because a friend of mine, Patrick Cockle, was running one of the shops down there, I think it was the Irving Sellers shop. And Sebastian Keep, another friend, used to hang out there at lunchtimes. And I was wearing the ties to work that I was making, and Patrick said, where'd you get your tie? And I said, oh, I made it. He said, we should make some samples and I'll show them to Irving Sellers, which he did do. And then we got an order for 144 ties, 12 dozen ties, and got paid for them. They sold out immediately, and we got another order and things like that. And then I was being late for work, you know, at Austin Reed's, and I got an ultimatum of because my hair was getting more like yours by then.
Yeah.
I got an ultimatum of getting my hair cut and getting to work on time, or leaving and do the ties. So I chose leaving and do the ties.
Yeah.
Colin Woodhead, bless his heart, you know, the guy that was running Q department and was the buyer and basically the manager whose idea it was. He said to me, bring me in some samples and I'll see if we can sell any. And we brought him in some samples and he gave us a massive order. And that really kick-started it. So then we were selling to Mr. Fish, Washington and Tremlett, Blades, Hung on You, Grannies, Just Men, and various other people out of town, you know, Marcus Price up in Newcastle and people like that.
So Lloyd, these ties,
yeah,
you're making, where was this happening then? At home? Did you have a sewing machine?
That was happening in, by that time we were living in South Kensington. I mean, this all fits in with your thing. We were living, not South Kensington, Clapham South, right? At 20 Pointers Road. And our landlord was Mrs. Dufour. And we had the top floor flat and we were making the ties there. And her son, Dave Dufour, was the drummer in a band called the Paper Blitz Tissue.
Yeah.
And his friend was Johnny Ford, right? Who later went on to be in the Strawbs, right? And I got Johnny Ford, Dave Dufour, Melvin Grant, who's an artist. He's got a website. He's a fantasy artist. One of my friends from school, and another guy called Kenny Comfort, that all played music. And I got them all together to form a band, and it was quite a good-looking band, you know. And because whilst I'm stepping back now a year, well, about 3 or 4 months, right? Because whilst I was at Cecil G's, Dick James, whose offices were in New Oxford Street, right? Yeah. He was a Beatles publicist. Dick James used to buy his shirts from me. And one day, as bold as brass, I said to him, oh, I've got a band, I manage a band, right? This is before I put them together, right? He said, oh, have you son? He says, here's a card. He said, I'd like to hear them when you feel you're ready, you know. So I immediately got Kenny and Melvin up from Hastings with Johnny Ford and Dave Dufour. And Johnny Ford was banging out songs, and I said, look, we need 3 albums worth of songs, you know, or LPs worth of songs. And in about 4 weeks, he wrote bloody hundreds of songs. I can always remember one was called My Lady, and it was very medieval, folky, which was perfect for the time. You know, it was on the lines of, you know, it was before Donovan was doing that type of thing, you know what I mean? That flowed sort of from dandy into hippie, you know, music. And so we had limited equipment, right? I think we had 2 amplifiers. So we had rhythm and lead going through one amp and bass through another, and the drum kit, right? And 1 microphone, you know, that was it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we all chipped together because we couldn't get this equipment on a bus to get to New Oxford Street. And we bought a GPO Morris van, which was red with black rubber mudguards, right? They used to have rubber mudguards so they didn't smash up the cars all the time. And it cost us 25 quid. We loaded it up, we drove up to New Oxford Street, lugged all the gear up the stairs, set it all up, and then the sound was awful, absolutely awful, you know, lots of feedback, and, you know, just dreadful. And it was a case of, he went up to Kenny and whispered in Kenny's ear, "I'll take you some, but I don't need the rest."
Really?
Because Kenny was...
yeah.
He saw Kenny had something and he would have put him in another band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny didn't tell me that until about 20 years ago, you know? And I said, "Well, you should have gone." He said, "No, I couldn't let Melvin down, who was his best mate, you know?"
Yeah.
Quite admirable, but a bit silly, but... Anyway, that was a case of don't call us, I'll call you, and the call never came, you know.
Yeah.
But had a lot of fun on the way.
So that was your taste of being a manager then?
I realised that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Very quickly, you know. But then Johnny Ford went on to write "You Can't Get Me, I'm Part of the Union," and had a massive hit much later in life.
Mm.
And both him and when he had the duo Hudson Ford, right? They used to come and buy the pop art jackets, you know, like the jacket that I just recently sold you.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. So where am I now?
Yeah. I asked you where you were making them. So you says you were making the ties.
Yeah. That's why I got onto that. Yeah, so we were making them there, and we were selling to all those people I mentioned. And one day we went into Just Men, which was run by Charles Schuller and John Dacey and Ian Lockhead. And we went into Just Men in Tryon Street off of the King's Road, delivered a load of ties, and John and Ian said, "We won't be here next time you come, because we're opening a shop within a shop in Kensington High Street." We didn't know what the hell they were talking about, because that concept hadn't been invented, you know, it hadn't been around. And sorry, tell me. So they said, "Okay, we'll take you over to the place." So we went over to what became Kensington Market, which was an empty building, like an empty department store. And we went in and had a look, and they showed us what they were doing, and they were going to open a shirt and trouser store or bar or whatever you want to call it, called Shirt Time. You would have liked a lot of their shirts, you know, they're probably incredibly rare.
Yeah.
And then Patrick said, "We should get one of these." And I said, "Okay." You know, we had about 600 quid saved up from our ties, which was a fortune, you know. And we got a stall in Kensington Market without a clue what we were going to buy, you know. We went to the office and said, "We'd like to take a stall." And they gave us a piece of chalk and said, "Go downstairs, mark out the bit you want, and we'll come down and price it up." You know, which, because it was totally empty, there was about 3 stalls in there.
Yeah.
It was about October 1967, this is.
You were right at the beginning of that then.
Yeah. So we went downstairs and I found a corner, right? Because I knew that it was going to be me that did all the woodwork to build build the shop or the stall or whatever. So I marked out 2 walls with the corner making the other 2 walls, right?
Yeah.
And then went upstairs and we got it costed out, and I think it was about £8 a week, something like that. So we took this place, and we had a French friend called Marcel Lassance, who was a language student from Hastings, you know, that used to come over from Paris in the summer to learn English in the early 60s. And Marcel was over, and he said, you should sell Newman jeans, right? And Newman jeans were stovepipe jeans, just like buttonfly Levi's, but an incredible cut, you know, incredible cut. And they come in about 30 colours in corduroy and velvet, right? So we thought, okay, we'll do that. And then there was the stall to build, which I built the 2 walls and curved the corner wall. We cut an oval shape like that as a door, so you had to step up and in to the door. And I made a big plug with a bar that you pulled down like that and padlocked on both sides. So it was like a hatch on a submarine. Right?
Brilliant.
Remember, this is all before Yellow Submarine and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you're talking 67. And then a chap called Ray Lambert that I went to art school with, I got him to paint, because from here some stairs come up. My stall was here, right? So coming up the stairs, you saw a blank side of the stall. So I got him to paint Medusa on there. So there was this beautiful woman's face with snakes coming out of her hair, you know. And then on the front side, he did a guy on a motorcycle going up to like a fairy castle, basically. You know, it was all like fantasy thing. And then you stepped inside, and I had William Morris wallpaper and green velvet curtains. There was a curtain down this side, and then wallpaper all round, Art Nouveau wallpaper, and or arts and crafts, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then from we bought 2 high back chairs, you know, like dining chairs, very high back, very baronial, right? And a huge mahogany chest of drawers. So we put the chest of drawers in the centre of that wall with the 2 baronial chairs each side, right? We carpeted it as well. And then all the Newman jeans we stacked up on top of the chest of drawers, and the overflow stock was all actually overflowing, you know, tipping out of the drawers. And you can imagine with 30 colours odd of jeans, you know,
amazing.
They look phenomenal. And within 2 weeks, we had queues, you know, people waiting for us to open up in the morning. Then we added in children's sizes, Westaway and Westaway coloured Shetland sweaters, crew necks and roll necks. And Ozzy Clark was just starting up. And we bought very short, like cafe racer type leather jackets from him.
Yeah.
In black. And all the studs on them were the nipple part of press studs, because at that time you couldn't actually, or he didn't know where to get the studs. Right? Yeah. So it was a very much a French foppish Cellular Companions, you know, like that magazine. Yeah. Very much Michel Polnareff and that sort of feel to it, you know, because we were constantly going to Paris in a Mini Hillman van, right? Filling it up with Newman jeans and driving it back, you know. Yeah. So, but the good thing about that, we were able to go to the drugstore where all the minus, the French equivalent to mods were meeting, and by that time they were all wearing Newman jeans. So what we were doing was importing a French, in inverted commas, mod look, you know. But it was much more bourgeois, you know, they're all middle class kids, you know.
Yeah.
So we were getting this like one step up on the English feel of the time, you know. And then they were making in Paris, they were making shirts which they called ligne de corps, which is line of the body. So these shirts had two darts coming from under the armpits down tapering down towards the navel, right? Not touching the navel, probably about 4 inches each side of the navel. And then they had 3 darts at the waist, at the back, each side, and 1 inch high collars at the back, but spear points at the front, like a 1930s menswear collar. So we started making those shirts to go with it all, which flew out, you know. And at that time we were going up to Manchester, searching out fabrics, and we were going to Huddersfield and Leeds and all these sort of places. But in Manchester, we found a merchant that bought all the fence, which are short lengths that are left over from rolls, and also misprinted rolls from a mill that printed all the stuff for Jean Cacherel, and who made women's blouses. And they were doing magic mushroom prints, clouds, you know, beautiful prints with, you know, where you could just placement prints. So you could just put all these sort of swirly florals down one side of the placket, you know, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And they were all in voiles, you know, they were all in like the equivalent of Tana Lawn, you know, Liberty's Tana Lawn.
Yeah, yeah.
Making them in that Cacherel fabric, like the skin tight shirts. And we were buying Liberty prints, and we were getting all sorts of prints. And then shift forward with the shirts, and we were doing high collar 2-button fronts, right, with pointed collars. We did all the beagle ear ones, as you call them, and we were finding then a lot of Art Deco prints, you know, because Bieber's was over the road, you know, and she sort of kick-started the whole Art Deco thing. And I can remember one particular print which was fantastic, and it was a woman in a cloche hat, just put into repeat, like with a half drop, you know, and her hat was rust coloured, and it was printed on satin. And that shirt has to be like the best-selling shirt we ever had, you know.
Really?
I mean,
who was making these shirts?
We had various shirt makers down the East End. Then we had a guy called Walter Clark in Princes Street in Manchester, central Manchester. And then eventually Patrick and I opened our own shirt factory in Rye Hill, just outside of Wakefield.
Yeah.
And that's when we started making for Jasper and Co., who wholesaled to Take 6. And we were making for Marcus Price up in Newcastle, and various other people. You know, we had at that time we had Joe and Co., which was the factory. And when you think we were 21, 22, you know, it's quite amazing. And then we had a wholesale company in Great Portland Street called Cochran & Johnson Wholesale, and we had Cochran & Johnson Retail in Kensington Market. You know, so the problem was we were too vertical, you know, like that all the money gets, you know, it gets shifted from one company to, there were 3 companies, one company to another, but we were undercapitalised. So, but what happened was a friend of ours spotted that we were undercapitalised, and he had a club called Yours and Mine, or most people know it as the Sombrero, in Kensington High Street, where Mark Bolan, Bowie, my voice is going. Iggy Pop, all that lot used to go there. You know, everyone used to go there. It was a gay club, the first openly gay club in London, and we would go with our girlfriends. You know, so it was, everyone looked gay anyway. You know what I mean? 'Cause we were like camp looking back then. And Armadeo said to us, look, I can see you're undercapitalised, because he came in and we had, because what happens is you have to have fabric on the floor, fabric in the factory, or it was, say, fabric on the floor in the factory, fabric on order, and the fabric of the shirts that are going through the factory, plus the fabric in made-up shirts in the shop. So we had one of those sections missing, and it would have cost 1,500 quid to fill it. So we had a permanent circle of flow, you know, of stock. So every now and again, the shop would be almost empty. You know, maybe once every couple of months. You know, it would look like we were closing down. You know, so he actually gave us £1,500, and he said, all I want for this is for you to supply one outfit for every member of my staff, and that was all the waiters and bar staff and everything, yours and mine, the sombrero. And he had a restaurant called Maggie Jones, where Armstrong Jones and Princess Margaret went there. That's why he called it Maggie Jones. And we made all the shirts and all the trousers for them, one set. And then he said, and he wanted 20% discount for any repeats that they came in and bought, which was a no-brainer for us, you know. So that sort of really set us on the wheels rolling properly. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, he got murdered by one of his lovers, Armadeo. That's a very sad story.
Lloyd, I'm just looking at the time now. Would it be possible to carry on next week? Would you be okay to do a part 2?
Yeah.
Also,
go on.
Because I also want to kind of go back a bit as well, because when we've spoken with each other, because like to the viewers, I've got to know Lloyd in recent years, and he's got some amazing stories about some of these now legendary shops like Hung On You and Granny Takes a Trip. So as well as obviously talking about, like, we're at a really important stage now in Johnson's career, but it'd be nice to hear a few anecdotes about when you used to sell your ties in Hung On You and Granny Takes a Trip. And
okay. So are we finishing now?
Yeah.
Let me just show the embroidered Phil Manzanero shirt.
Yes, please. Brilliant. Yes, so for everyone that's watching, there'll be a part 2 next week, which will be really cool. Oh, look at this. That's beautiful.
Hang on, I need to take it back.
Wow.
You can see that. That's the sleeve.
Yeah. And
there's the, I'm trying to get the label in there.
Yeah, I can see it now, Copeland Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, that's from about 1968.
That's beautiful.
And they're skin tight then.
That was a lovely treat. So,
yeah.
so are you okay for next Sunday then? Same time, same place?
Yeah, I think so. You just need to jog memory. Did you get the jacket okay?
No, I've checked up, and it should be Monday. Apparently it's in postal holding in Derby, so hopefully tomorrow. So I've just purchased an amazing jacket from Lloyd, so hopefully next week I'll have it on the dummy here. So yeah. But I'll let you know before then anyway, Lloyd.
Bearing bearing in mind that's 1973.
Yeah.
When we were doing pop art was very popular, so we were doing a lot of pop art stuff.
It's the I can't wait to get it and show it to everyone. It's an absolute beauty.
Because it's in a box about this big, right?
Yeah.
So you have to.
Yeah.
And I threw in a Beagle Ear jersey shirt that we used to do. It's just a white Beagle Ear jersey shirt, which you can have as a present, you know.
Oh, wow. What a treat.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Lloyd.
Okay.
And thank you, and see you next week. But I'll obviously contact you before then anyway.
Okay.
Thank you very much. See you next week, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.